My name is Etienne. I am 51 years old. I am from Berkeley, California. I was in the U.S. Army for Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm.
Well, thank you for your service.
Well, thank you for your service as well, Jake. I will be your moderator today. I am in the midst. I'm going to start. We're going to be going live here. So just one moment as I get things set up. If everybody would like to introduce themselves, so we'll start with George, then Rico, then Robert, then Amy. Go right ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hello, Jake. My name's George Armstrong. I am from Keysville, New York. Over here, sir. I'm from Keysville, New York. I was in the Army from 1985 to 1993.
Well, thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to speak to you.
Hello, Jake. My name is Ricardo Pareda. I'm from Tucson, Arizona. I served in the United States Army Military Police Corps from 2003 to 2009.
And thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
Robert?
Hi, Jake. Thank you for joining us today. My name's Robert Kowalski. I'm from Youngstown, Ohio, and I served in the U.S. Air Force Security Forces from 06 to 11.
Thank you for your service.
And thank you.
Hi, Jake. I'm Amy King. I'm 52 years old. I'm from Canton, Ohio, and I'm the granddaughter of a Korean veteran, the niece of a Vietnam veteran, the wife of a deceased first Gulf War Navy submarine veteran, and the current wife of a retired Navy corpsman. So proud to have you. Thank you for your service, sir.
Well, thank you for being here. You're making my day.
And the last gentleman who just joined us is Mr. Brian Buckley. Would you please introduce yourself to Jake?
Absolutely. Hey, Jake, honored to meet you. So yeah, my name's Brian Buckley. Served 9 years in the Marine Corps, was in the infantry and then Marine reconnaissance, and then became a Marine Raider, which is our special operations units. Served in Iraq, Afghanistan, super excited to listen to your story and learn from you.
Well, thank you for your service, sir. We're having problems here.
You too.
No, we're fine. We're fine, Jake.
Oh,
all right.
Just some of their connection.
Yeah, it will happen from time to time. We are on the internet, so it will get a little choppy, but we're just going to keep going. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Etienne Fontan. I am the director. I'm one of the council members of the Veterans Action Council. I will be leading today's discussion and interview with our special guest, Mr. Jake Larson. He is from California. He is a World War II veteran and is here to share his war and post-war experiences with us. And we're very honored to have you here today, Jake. I will gonna kind of allow you to start the discussion, but I wanted to give you a starting place. History tends to repeat itself. People generationally seem to forget the price that war takes on our souls. However, pre-going to war, we have excitement. What was the climate like in America for you before shipping off to the European theater? What was your mindset?
My mindset was completely different. What you see these days. I was born in 1922. 1922 was pretty rough living. And I went through the Great Depression. In fact, the Depression did not let up. We were already in war. But I was born and raised on a 160-acre farm in southern Minnesota, right outside a little place called Hope. There was always hope. And that's where our mail was sent to. But I because of my birthday, it kind of changed my life. This is getting into something you probably never heard. My birthday is December 20th, 1922. So I was 11 days old when 1923 came. So when I think of my birth year, I think of 1923, not 22. But when you tell people 22, it's 22. So I started grade school at 4 years old. No kindergarten, first grade. At 12 years old, I graduated 8th grade. Well, then I went right on to high school, being 12 years old. And in December, I turned 13. So if things hadn't gone exactly that way, I would not be in this position. But when I was 15 years old, going to high school, I didn't have the chance to go out for sports or anything because I worked my way through high school by helping cook and serve 8 room and boarders for my room and board for 3 years, the first 3 years. And I had a first cousin, Chick, who got his room and board, but every Saturday we'd meet in downtown Owatonna and just walk around. We had no money. And the Roxy Theater had a big sign up there on this Saturday. It's a Saturday matinee, Gene Autry, America's favorite cowboy. 10 cents. Between us, we couldn't rake up 1 cent. And he says, Jake, he says, let's join the National Guard. They're looking to fill the guard unit. And they were looking to fill the guard unit because in 1938, Hitler had taken the Sudetenland and annexed Austria. And the army, the United States Army at that time, I think was 125,000 that were stateside. So I said, Chick, you have to be 18 to get into the National Guard. We're 15 years old. He says, look, he says, let's go down there. And when they ask you, how old are you? You just look them right in the eye and say, 18, sir. I said, they'll never accept that. Look at us, a couple of kids trying to get, he says, what can they do? Kick us out? So we goes down to the National Guard Armory, and I still remember that big captain sitting behind the desk, and he had one of these long triangular wooden nameplates. And on that nameplate, it said Hugh H. Soper, and S-O-P-E-R, not S-O-A-P. But, and I never saw that guy after that. For some reason, he was always in there when we came to drill. he looked up at me and he says, what can I do for you young men? Man, calling us young men, that's quite an honor for 15-year-old lad. There was hope there. And I said, sir, we'd like to join the National Guard. I'm thinking 18. So he looks up and he says, what year were you born? Well, wait a minute here. That's ringing a different bell. So mentally, I said, well, I'm born in 1922. So take away 3 from that, that'll be 1919. 1919, sir. He says, sign right here. Well, then Chick was automatically in because he had heard me say that. So that's exactly what he said. So we got into the National Guard without any physical checkups or a thing. I was born colorblind. And I've been colorblind most of my life until here 4 years ago. I was going to get my driver's license renewed. That was where I was going to be 95, and it's man, you can't pass the eye test. You got to have new glasses. So I went to get new glasses, and no, you got cataracts, and you got to have those taken care of. So anyway, they took the cataracts out, and on Easter Sunday, which was April Fool's Day that year, I got my color vision back. I never had it before. I got it. So life is weird for this old man, but let's get back to the service. 2 summers, the summer of 39 and 40, the National Guard went for a month's service at Camp Ripley, Minnesota. That was my training there. And in February 10th, 1941, I had turned 18, 1940, the December. And in 41, our 34th Division was put into federal service. And I didn't know it at the time, but I think there were 28 or 29 divisions in the United States that was put into federal service. So we went down to Camp Claiborne, Louisiana, and we got into the Louisiana maneuvers down there. That's a terrible place to be when you're in the infantry. It's loaded with chiggers, ticks, mosquitoes, 3 kinds of poisonous snakes, moccasins, water moccasins, rattlesnakes, and coral snakes. And it's and the people weren't welcoming us. We signified war, and at that time, only 8% of the population favored going to war against Hitler, helping England stay out of or keep going in the war. 8%. When I went into Alexandria, Louisiana, and they had a public swimming pool, and on that public swimming pool was a large sign, dog or soldiers and dogs not allowed. Of course, after we got into the war, that sign came down. But now, from I got appendicitis after I came back from the maneuvers and that, and before they got me into the hospital, it broke, my appendix broke, and so I stayed in the hospital for 10 days, and then I got a sick leave. I came back to Minnesota from Louisiana, and they had a drain in my appendix operation scar, and my mother took care of it, and by golly, I went back to the infantry. Well, that's what I was planned. But when I got there, I found out that I was transferred to headquarters company because they had looked in my records and saw that I was a typist. I could type. Typing, boys typing at that time was pretty rare. In my typing class of 30, I was the only boy. So, but that typing then changed my life. So I was automatically promoted to corporal, and I was the lone company clerk for headquarters company. And for a month or more, I got acquainted with what the Army did and everything, and I found out about tables of organization. And checking that out, I found that the company clerk for headquarters company was supposed to be a sergeant with a corporal helper. So I went to Captain Ray J. Erickson and told him that TO called for me being a sergeant with a corporal helper. He says, Corporal, he says, I can't take that sergeant stripes that I'd given to this guy before you were even here. He says, but I will get you a helper. So he had one strike against him right there. By golly, and so he got me a corporal helper that could not type. That was 2 strikes against Captain Erickson. So I got to draw my breath here for a minute.
Take your time as you need, Jake. It's all good. We're enjoying your conversation. You're doing great.
Well, if you guys aren't interested in this little detail,
we are. Please keep going.
This I'm telling you this because this is all the reason why I'm getting medals and afterwards. It could have turned out so different if I hadn't been for that typing. So
we're super interested. I love this story. You keep going, take your time, take your deep breaths whenever you need to, man. This is amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, you guys got to realize that I am not a youngster. I just turned 98, December 20th.
You're a youngster at heart.
It's but I've got something going for me that people would pay millions and millions for. I don't have aches or pains, no arthritis, no in that, and I am so blessed. I am so blessed, and my granddaughter said all this stuff. She says, I'm so excited and nervous. And I sit here without an ache or a pain. God, I can't understand it myself. So if you want to break in and say something to me, just right now, say it.
I want to hear about the third strike.
Oh yeah. What's
So anyway, the next thing that happened was the Japanese bomb Pearl Harbor on a Sunday. Wow. Did that ever change things for us? The commanding officer of the 135th Infantry Regiment, which was part of the 34th Division, came out of his office, and all the company clerks were right up there in a room right next to the commanding officer. I'm sorry, his name left me, and I can't remember it. But I thought it was Colonel Schmidt, and the last interview I had, that guy checked and he says, no, it's not Colonel Schmidt. So I don't know what it was, but you'll understand why I've lost a few marbles back there, but we'll go on from there. So Colonel Schmidt came out, and we'll call him Colonel Schmidt because that's what I can remember. He came out and said, attention, all you company clerks. He says, I have an announcement to make that you take back to your commanding officer. He says, you tell him I am authorizing 15-day furlough back to Minnesota to all those who haven't had a furlough in the past year. And so I goes back to Captain Ray J. Erickson and tells him just exactly what the colonel said. And he says, instead of saying, take care of that, Corporal, he says, Corporal, you go up to headquarters, check the records, and see who hasn't had a furlough in the past year, and you make them out for 7 days. 7 days, sir. I said, we're 1,000 miles from Minnesota. This is the middle of winter. It's going to take 3 days to get up there. They'll just have to turn around and come back in order to make it on time. He says, Corporal, he says, you do as you're told. I'm the commanding officer of this company. I said, yes, sir. So I went back up and found that there were about 55 guys that hadn't had a furlough in the past year. And Corporal Jake Larson was one of them. So all those guys I made out, each one is made out individually. And each one has to be signed by the captain after you got them all made out. So somehow, I don't know what happened there, but when I made mine out, instead of typing in there 7, the typewriter put 15 in there. Well, Captain Erickson signed all those furloughs papers. I picked them all up, took them back up to headquarters, and typed each individual one on this stencil so that we could mimeograph all the things, then took the stencil into the colonel and had him with a stylus sign it. That takes the wax off of there so ink will go through. And I ran them off on the mimeograph machine, and I took my furlough and went over to Company F and met my two cousins over there. And Ole had just bought a 37 Ford at that time, and we all drove to Minnesota and shared the ride up there. When I got up there, their dad, my Uncle John, said, "You guys, I'm going to take you back. I got a new 1941 Mercury sedan." He says, "I want to see what Camp Claiborne looks like, and this will be my only chance." So after 7 days up there on my furlough, the postmaster from Hope came over. Joe Slazak was his name, and came over to the farm, and he says, "Jake," he says, "I got a telegram from your commanding officer." I said, "Joe, you weren't able to locate me, were you?" "No," he says, "I never saw you." So he drove home. Well, when I got back to camp 15 days later, Captain Erickson met me and pulled off my corporal stripes, and he says, "You're a private now?" He says, "You're going to be working in climbing poles and stringing wire." And he says, "I should court-martial you." I said, "I'd like to know the reason you could court-martial me." I said, "You signed all those furloughs." He says, "That's it." He says, I'm going to court-martial you for signing my name." I said, I'd love that. Take them all up there at the same time, and you signed them all at the same time. So it wouldn't take much to figure out that you signed them all. "Well, no. Anyway," he says, you're going to be climbing poles and stringing wire from now on, and that's it." So I thought the next day I'd be doing that. By golly, we got orders to report to Fort Dix, New Jersey for embarkation. Well, you have to wait for a ship to come in for embarkation. So we goes to New Jersey, and my two cousins and I, we head for New York. We get passes for going to New York, and going by the port there where the ships came in, and they worked on the big ones. There was the French luxury liner Normandy, a name that kind of changed my life a little bit. But that was the fastest ship in the world at the time, and it was being transferred over to be a troop carrier, because a ship like that went over 31 knots, that could evade submarines. So anyway, that was laying at a 45-degree angle on its side, and they were just spraying water over it. And we went on to New York, went on up to the band around the head of the Statue of Liberty. We looked out there. We couldn't go up the arm because when the war started, they put it off limits to go up the arm where she had raised her light. And then we went up to the Empire State Building, to the top there. went to Radio City Music Hall and saw the all-girl orchestra, and then we went to Times Square, and that's just middle of winter, middle of winter, and wearing the overcoats, and a pigeon came down and dropped his load on my shoulder, which is ironic. Born and raised on a farm and had to go to New York City to get pooped on. But then the French or the English ship, wasn't it? Aquitania came in. That used to be a luxury liner, and that was fitted for a troop carrier. So the 34th Division got on that, and I don't know what else got on there, because they don't tell you much. You just get on. But the first thing they asked for was help in the galley. I was the only one that volunteered. Man, I was used to helping in the kitchen and stuff. 3 years of doing that, going to high school. So, yeah, man, it paid off right out in dividends. I had special breakfast, bacon and eggs. My golly, you know, that was good for a farm boy. And I had more steak on that ship than I had in my lifetime growing up on the farm. So we were supposed to stop at Londonderry, North Ireland, but it was so loaded with ships being in there for repair from the submarines and stuff that we landed in Glasgow, Scotland. And in Glasgow, we transferred to smaller ships to take us over to North Ireland. So went back to, went those counties where.
Ooh, I know on the tip of my tongue. There was a county that was part of.
I've got a whole, I got a list of different places that I was going, but I don't know if I got it around.
Find out.
There we are.
Oh, you have it on. I think it's just turned towards you. There you go.
Armagh.
Oh, Arma. That's what
Yeah. Armagh is a county, and Armagh is also the name of a city, just like New York, New York. So that's where we set up permanent place there in Armagh. And so I was thinking, man, I'm down here in Armagh, North Ireland. I imagine I'll be climbing poles and stringing wire. The next day, an order came, I don't know where it came from, but we were temporarily put on detached service to Ballymena, North Ireland. Three of us, a staff sergeant, a corporal, and a private. I was the private. And we went to Ballymena, and advertised to the different companies of those people that were in the British service. If there were any Americans that had joined the service before we got into the war, we could transfer them at their rating back to the American Army. The pay was, our pay was quite substantial compared to theirs. So after about a little over a month of that, it dried up, and we went back. I went back, and I thought, well, I'll be climbing poles and stringing wire now. And the next thing I knew, all three of us, the staff sergeant, this corporal, and myself, were transferred to G3 of 5th Corps. I had no idea what it was. Now, are all of you familiar with the 4 Gs in the service? Now you can talk to me. Or anybody?
No.
No, sir. Go ahead.
All right. You have an army, and the army is up their tops, unless you're an army group, armies, but it starts with the army. That's the highest you can get in the service. Under army comes the corps. Each army has 2 corps under there. Now, over there, when we finally went on the invasion on D-Day, our first army, which we were under, had the 7th Corps, which went in on Utah Beach, then the 5th Corps, which was me and the 5th Corps, on Omaha Beach. 5th Corps was in charge of all the landings on Omaha Beach. Think of this. I'm a private at that time, and I'm going into 5th Corps, into G3 section. I didn't know what G3 even meant. And then I found out about the 4 Gs. G1 is personnel. That's all the personnel. G2 is intelligence. They get out and find out what the enemy is doing. And they give that information to G3. G3 is plans, that's be like the invasion, and training of those plans. G4 is supplies. That's the 4 Gs.
Fascinating.
So landing in G3 is the luck. It's like my luck. When you follow, I got a book coming out here just as quick as I can get that thing published here, but it's a little bit screwed up right now. The life is, but that would be an interesting one for you to look at, because I'm just repeating stuff that I've gone through right now. So has anybody got any questions they want to get right now while I'm talking about this stuff?
I think we're all just listening to you, Jake. We have some questions afterwards, but We just wanted you to basically, we're here to listen to you and tell your experience, because we have all, many of us here have been combat veterans. So we understand, but you are an elder to us. And so your experience, we have always held in high honor. My stepfather served in World War II in the 517th Airborne. So he
Oh, that was part of the 101st.
Yes, sir. And he survived. He was the only member of his platoon to survive Bastogne. And he, of course, he jumped behind on D-Day. And so he passed away 4 years ago, and he was my mentor. So I didn't get to hear many of his experiences because a lot of your generation were very stoic and didn't really talk about your experiences. It wasn't until I found his box of medals of Purple Hearts and Bronze Stars that I had an understanding of what he had been through. And it wasn't until I had come back from my war that I had an understanding, or that he actually told me. So for us, we don't have any firsthand understanding for the most part of what your generation went through. So you are a keeper of time for us, but also we hold what you have done in high honor, which is why we wanted to host you today so that we could hear your truth. So please continue.
Well, you guys, you cannot realize what an honor this is for me to be sitting here talking to you. It's such an honor, and you've got to realize that even though I was in the Army for a long time and joined when I was just a child, I did come out of that. I did come out without a scratch. I went through 6 battles, landing on D-Day. And I came out with the Bronze Star, the French Legion of Honor. And if you don't know,
Jake, could you share with us just before D-Day and your experience on Normandy, if you would care to go there with us?
well, before we get to Normandy, there's a few things I got to get in there.
Go ahead and do
Take your time. We're here for you. So you give us as much backstory as you need to, because we understand your stories have layers to them. So we've made this time for you. So you take your time, sir.
So I got transferred as a private into G3. Well, the first thing those guys running GP will put me on the firing line. They told me to type this, type that, and everything. I don't know how I achieved just about the impossible in typing. I could type 50 words a minute without mistakes. And when you're typing 5-letter code groups, and there you had to type those at 45 words a minute. That's those type. What the heck they call that machine? A typewriter hooked to another typewriter, and when you typed it on yours, it typed on the other ones for the divisions under you. But they were touchy. If you went over speed or under speed, they would louse up, and they had to be. They all had to be timed with a tuning fork, which was supplied along with it. And by the time you got a couple divisions under you and you all together, you probably spend a half an hour just getting that thing lined up so that you could type, and then type five just pick 5 letters out of the air and type. You don't have half the time you're typing, you aren't spelling that word, it's automatically in your fingers. That word is already there. But code is so different, and typing 45 minutes without making any mistakes on that is quite a thing. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. So I wasn't there for 2 months, and I was a corporal again. And another couple months, and I was a sergeant. And that went on through 42, 43. In 42, the last of 42, where the 34th Division went down to North Africa. The 5th Corps went to Bristol, England. We had set up shop over there in Bristol, England at Clifton College. And I was in charge of the tables of organization there. And at that time, we were actually, we went into that war with World War I units. So everybody had their tables of organization brought up to date. And that was all done by the Pentagon in Washington. They sent us new ones, and then we had to work with those. So I became quite literate, because I was on the buck slip when those things came in, the G3. I was on the buck slip with the 2 colonels, the full bird colonel and a lieutenant colonel. That's the officers we had in G3. So in 1943, we moved from Bristol to Taunton, England, in Somerset. And then toward the end of 43, Colonel Hill, who was the full bird colonel, and he got he picked me to go with him to Portsmouth, England. That's where they were planning the invasion of there. And we were then classified top secret bigot, BIGOT. I wondered where bigot came from, or why it was called bigot, but I figured it out that the British were great in spelling something backwards and then making a word out of it, and they controlled Gibraltar at this time, and any merchandise going to Gibraltar was they just stamp on there to jib. Spell that backwards is bigot. So now what? I lost my train of thought.
I think you're headed to Slapton Sands.
What was that?
Slapton Sands. Right?
What?
Slapton Sands. Is that
Oh,
next?
Yeah. That's but that was after Portsmouth. Yeah, after Portsmouth, we went back to
It's
where were
okay
you?
if you don't remember the town.
Yeah, well,
I can barely remember what I
Taunton.
ate yesterday.
Taunton. Yeah.
Okay.
Then at Taunton, they sent me down to Land's End for 50 caliber machine gun training on towed targets. So I went through that, and then then I went to Plymouth, England, and it's kind of difficult to tell you, but they kept every dang thing a secret to you. They'd ship you around, and we got down to Plymouth, and we were put on these on LST, landing ship tank. And instead of tanks down in the hold, there were 400. And I didn't realize this at the time. I was the only one from 5th Corps. The reason they send me on these because, he had infantry training. The same way with Land's End there. I had infantry training. I always had to go down and get ready for more infantry training. So not only one landing ship tank came out of there, but there must have been a dozen of them. So, but the one I got on was on the left-hand side, and half a mile to the right of it was a second one, and then half a mile away from that was a third one, and we were headed for Slapton Sands. Slapton Sands in the southeast corner of England was supposed to be like landing on D-Day. And there was a British operation called Operation Tiger. And they had a little surprise for you. They greeted you with live fire. So when we got up there, we got live fire, all right, but it was not the British. It was the Germans. They had two we had called them E-boats at that time. They were like PT boats, only bigger. And those two LSTs to my right were torpedoed and sunk. And our ship had eyes up above on the guard. They shot it up so bad that they shot out our air. And those ships were run with diesel engines. It wasn't a half an hour and there were 400 of us laying on the floor vomiting, but diesel gassed. I don't know how we made it back down to Plymouth. But when we got staggered out of there, we were brought to attention by a full bird colonel, and he swore us all to secrecy. We could be court-martialed and something, I don't know, probably cut off your hair or something. But anyway, for 40 years, I kept that a secret until it leaked out by Slapton Sands itself, by one of the farmers there, saying there were tanks and stuff. And why was this a memorial down there and nobody knew anything about it? 795 soldiers that were ready to go on D-Day. They were killed there. Any comments?
Well, you you started to lead up to D-Day.
I'm right on it.
Yeah, well, here's a specific question. What was the night before the battle like for you and your comrades? We know that Ike wrote his defeat letter the night before D-Day. The plan was sound, but there was some luck that had to happen too. So a lot of us have been in gunfights, but you had a weight of the free world on your shoulders at that time. What did that feel like?
Well, we were loaded on June 6th or June 4th. We were supposed to have D-Day was supposed to be June 5th. The weather, it was a terrible storm came in. Do you think anybody slept on the night of June 4th?
No.
No.
Do you think anybody slept on the day of the 5th? Do you think that they slept on the night of the 5th? And that's when D-Day started, June 6th. Now, the 101st and the 82nd Airborne started off at midnight, and they landed behind the lines there. God bless them. They were our backups there.
Hey, Jake, will you fix your camera so we can see your whole face? Your camera got jiggled or something. There we are.
There you go.
I want to see your whole face.
My God, I'm glad you like it. I'm so used to it. I just kind of ignore it.
Jake, I have a question. You said that y'all were up for 3 days. Did they give you anything to stay awake or to keep you awake?
Hell no, it's called adrenaline. It's adrenaline, man. When you got something like that, you don't know if you're coming back. You're going to lose somebody. You're going to lose a bunch. But it's war. How do you get out of that? You are it. Any other comments?
No, keep it coming. We're on D-Day. We're one of the big one.
I think that now is a good time to actually ask that question about the war on terror, because what you're talking about, what you experienced, you had a specific enemy. And right now we're in a culture since 9/11 of fighting an almost invisible war on terror. And what do you think the difference is between what you've experienced in those 3 days leading up to D-Day and what the soldiers or our military is doing in a war on terror?
Well, Well, all I can say is, boy, I'm glad I didn't have to go over there to Iraq and all those places. We didn't have anybody trying to bomb you, you know. All of our happenings happened right there where it's supposed to happen. They were trying to kill us, of course. We were trying to kill them. But when I came in, I didn't go in with the first wave. Man, that was at 6:30 they started in there. And they had a hell of a time. I landed on Easy Red, the thing, and I had no watch or anything. I'm kind of guessing at this here, and it was probably 9, 10 o'clock. We were held back so long that General Bradley, who was in charge of First Army, was going to call it quits and telling Eisenhower that they couldn't make it through. And then we finally made it through, and they got up over the cliff. And that's when, just before that is when I was trying to get in there, and they dropped our load off a little too deep, and we were up to our chin in water and holding our rifle up above us so it wouldn't get wet. And we fell in line, 30 of us, right off of that landing craft infantry, LCI. And there was a lot of landing crafts landing at the same time when I was, and they formed those lines. Now we were being shot at above and right at. The above stuff going over us was from these cannon. And it was like the 4th of July. I was colorblind at that time, but it was unbelievable. And that whooshing through the air of those giant cannon from our ships, 14-inch things going over one way and the other way, and small arms firing at you and everything. You didn't get a chance to think straight. But I followed in line because what I was afraid of was the damn landmines that they had planted there on that beach. They planted 1 million landmines, 1 million. So I'm damn sure that I stepped where the other people were stepping in front of me. And there were other lines going in, and every once in a while, in the middle of that line or so, you see a puff of water go up into the air. Yeah, that was somebody stepping on a landmine. And that was my fear, was the landmine, not from being shot at. But when I got in on Easy Red Road, ready to go that way, well, here I got out of the water, and there was a kind of a washed out sandstone there, a brim like, and it was, I had 2 MG-42 machine guns shooting at me, one from the left and one from the right. They had me zeroed in from above. And they let me know that I was being watched. So that sand would just burst in front of me. So I laid right down behind that 6 or 8 inches, whatever it was there, protected me. And man, I was a smoker at that time, and I got out of, I had a waterproof cigarette carrier, and I got out a cigarette, but hell, my matches were wet. So I looked right to my left and to the back, right at below my feet, there was another soldier. I said, "Hey, buddy, have you got a match?" I got no response. I glanced back there again. There was no head under the helmet. To this day, I give credit for me getting to the beach, to that guy's soul. Because at that time, those machine guns happened to stop. Maybe they were reloading, maybe they were changing barrels. I don't know what. But at that instant, I got up and ran. And I ran. And it was 1,000 miles or yards to the cliff. And I looked up and I said, "God, what am I doing here? What the hell? I can't see anybody to shoot at, and they could see me. And those machine guns didn't catch up with me." I say there is a Lord. There is a Lord. And I am here today because there is a Lord. So we got to the cliff, and then after getting over that, up the cliff and over, then the Germans cleared out of there. They've got no defense to those fortifications from the back. So when we got around back, you found nothing there. So things happened. I forgot. I forgot how I got up there and what happened after that. But all of a sudden, I'm digging a foxhole with Corporal Madison Rich. I'm digging mine and he's digging his, and I found a litter. I don't even know how I found that. I don't remember it. I do not remember those things. And I found this litter, so I dug my foxhole a little bit longer because there's these wood poles sticking out of there, and I put that in the bottom of my foxhole. That was a 7:15, D-Day night, evening. So somebody hollered from the command post, "Sergeant Larson, Colonel Hill wants to see you immediately." So I went in and saw Colonel Hill, full word Colonel. He says, "Sergeant," he says, "I just got word from 1st Army. They want me to keep G3 open 24 hours a day." He says, "You are going to run the night shift." I says, "Yes, sir." He says, "I'll get you some help." And so I went back to where Corporal Rich was, and I said, "Hey, Matty, you can sleep in my foxhole tonight. I got that litter in there. You don't have the wet ground under you." And he says, "Jake, I got my fart sack all stretched out here. So he laid his M1 Grand Rifle on my litter, and he crawled into his sack, and he went to sleep, and I went to work at 7:30 that night. I'm running on adrenaline. Adrenaline ran the army at that moment. Except at midnight, the Germans sent a reconnaissance plane over there to see what we were doing. So they dropped these little magnesium flares in small parachutes, like a handkerchief size, down. And as quick as they dropped those, it lit up like broad daylight, brighter than daylight. And they took pictures. Well, that aggravates our anti-aircraft. And they shot up at the airplane. And after a while, it all died down. And I don't remember what happened until morning. Man, all of a sudden, there's people come to relieve me. Well, I goes back to where Corporal Rich was, and he just got out of his sack, and he picked up that M1 rifle, and it fell in two. A piece of shrapnel that had been shot up at that plane came down and hit that gun and broke it right in two. Got any comments now about luckiest man in the world?
No, you just keep on going, sir. You are doing just fine. We are in awe. You got this.
It's so crazy. God, I can't even believe that I'm sitting here doing this.
We appreciate it greatly. We're also humored that the term fart sack is still being used to this day. So we still use that in the military, sir.
Well, that was such a common term. It just came out. I've even got that in my book. I said, it just wouldn't be the same if you changed it. It would not be the right thing. What could you put in there?
You're absolutely correct. Keep on going, Jake.
So we went through the trouble with me is I had to work all night long. I had to run G3, and if there were messages being sent out in code and everything, I had to run that thing. For 1 week, I do not remember what I did because I never got sleep. Anything they did during the day. If we moved or did anything, we did through the day, and I had to be helping with that and moving. So I got behind on my sleep, and a little over a week, I went to bed, and we had a hell of a storm. It took our port right out of there and left only one, the British. And it took me while I was sleeping. I ended up in the field hospital with pneumonia. And I woke up in this gigantic field hospital, and the beds were right close together. and they were working on a guy and giving him a spinal. Man, that needle like that, it made me shudder watching him put that needle through his back. Holy smokes. And that was the first use of penicillin over there. They gave me penicillin for the pneumonia, and they cured me. And then they did some work on my teeth. I had to take out one of the eye teeth at the bottom, because behind it, my teeth were a little crooked, they were awful. But they couldn't get it out, broke it off, and then gave me gas plus the shot, and chiseled it out of there and woke me up again. It took me a week to get my jaw relocated. I had to suck soup for a while, but then finally I was discharged, and I went up to the commanding officer of that hospital, that field hospital. He was a major, and I said, "Major, I'm ready to go back to my unit." He says, "We don't send anybody back to their unit. You go to a replacement depot, and they take you as they need them in the front end of the line." I said, "Sir, can I use your phone?" So I rang G3 and got Colonel Hill. I knew his phone number, and I told him I was ready to go, and they were going to send me to a replacement depot. He is who's in command there. So I told him the name of that major, and I handed Major the phone. I said, "Colonel Hill would like to speak to you, sir." Yeah, it is the craziest conversation. This conversation should make history. He says, "Yes, sir." He says, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Right away, sir." He hung up the phone and rang it again. "Give me the motor pool." He says, "Send the Jeep up here right away to take me back to G3. You got any comments on that one?
I like your style. I mean, I like your style. I like how all the way through this, you've been running these people, not letting these people run you. You're my kind of guy. I'm digging it.
But
Well, here's a quick question, Jake. So is
Go ahead.
that why so many guys would essentially break out of the hospital to sneak back to their units, is because they were assigned to that?
I have no idea. You're asking me something that I have no control of or anything. But in fact, hell, I didn't even get to know the guy that's to me. And the doctors didn't even say, "I'm Dr. So-and-so, you got this." Yeah. It was just like you were a nun, nothing. I don't understand it all myself. And I had some wonderful doctor friends while I was in the service. And but that's another story. I got a wife from having a major in medical officer, a major. It's my life is weird. Let's just put it that way. So our first big battle then was San Lo. we call it St. Lo, over there, San Lo. And it took us over a month to capture that. And then I was sleeping in a ditch at that time with a 3-foot bank on the side, so I could put my right up alongside of the ditch. There's the road there, a couple feet above me. And I go to bed in the morning at 8 o'clock or so, right after I eat. And I wake up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I got so that I could lay down and close my eyes and sleep. I can do that right today. 5 minutes after I go to bed, I'm sleeping. The Army, I got training in the Army. I could just shut everything off. So I wake up at 2 o'clock. There's people walking on that road. I'm not looking up there. I'm taking the helmet liner out, putting some water in my helmet. I'm brushing my teeth. Dump that water out of the helmet. Somebody says, "Hey, what the hell are you doing down there?" What? I just brushed my teeth. I was going to put some more water in and shave. Get the hell out of there. He says, "We had this thing cleared. How come you're still there?" I said, "I was sleeping. I work at night." "Get out of there." He says, we're sandbagging a 155 millimeter cannon shell that came right over your sleeping thing and landed here on the road and didn't explode. We're sandbagging it to explode it. Now, you got any more questions?
Do you know your angel's name?
Yes, I do. It's my grandmother. That's another story. Her name is Ingeborg Larson. And she told me on a Ouija board that she'd been my guardian angel since my birth. She died in the flu epidemic of 1918. I was born in 1922, but she says, I've been your guardian angel since you're born. And I'm a believer. I'm a real believer.
All right, so you survived the ditch, and you the unexploded 1-5. I was artillery, and I was 155 artillery myself. So, needless to say, your angel was there that day. So, what happened next?
Well. I got to get wound up again here. You guys are putting an old man to the test.
Well, we appreciate it. You take your time, and you tell us as much as you want. You can.
Do you need a break?
You need to stop for a little bit.
Well, I don't have to tell anybody when I need a break. I just take it.
You fair enough. You just continue as needed, sir. Pardon me,
I like it. I like it when you make comments on me.
What? So you never really got to sleep. You were constantly in a state of awake or
yeah. You're in a kind of a numb state. You understand that you can do your job, but when you come out of that, you're kind of numb. It's kind of a blurry state of mind that the ordinary stuff just doesn't sink into you what's going on. It's so after we captured San Lo, we went to Fowley Gap. Anybody hear of that one? F-A-L-A-I-S-S-E, Fowley's, but it's Fowley Gap. And we and Third Army and a little bit of the Third Army pushed the German army right into the Fowley Gap. It's narrow, so the British were on the left-hand side, we were on the right-hand side, and I don't know who the heck was behind pushing, but we killed about 50,000. We captured about 100,000, and another 50,000 got away because the British didn't cut them off on the left-hand side. Now, by the time Fifth Corps got up there and through there, all these bodies were built up and bloated and full of maggots. The stench of dead people, dead horses. So many horses. Unbelievable. All their mess gear and part of their artillery was pulled by horses. I took out my handkerchief and water from my canteen and then tied that around my nose. It didn't help. But it was better than nothing. So, but anyway, getting out of that thing, it is so unbelievable. There's where you know war is hell. I got to feel sorry for the German soldiers. There, I'd like a comment on that, though.
Please. Go ahead.
I'd like to have you make a comment on it.
Oh, well, I mean, for myself, I always learn to respect my enemy. And I remember every face. So what is it like for you? Do you remember the faces? Do you still see them? Do you still have them in dreams?
I don't. I have the ability to blank out their faces. You see, I think I'm blessed. I know I am. And think of it. You're talking to the last guy in 3 outfits that I was in. I'm the last guy alive. I'm the last guy out of Fifth Corps alive. You're never going to hear this story from anyone else. But you can understand my position in life. There's nobody else been in my position. That's why mine is so different. You never heard of anybody working at night in the service. You give that a thought, and you'll see where that's why mine is so different.
My stepfather said he would be amazed at how much of your body you could fit into your helmet.
Yeah. Well, look at it. That was our only protector. That was our only protector. We had this wool shirt, and that didn't stop very much from getting in. We had no protection except a helmet. So we crawled in that, at least mentally, we crawled in.
What was after Simba? Oh, or Falaise Gap.
Falaise Gap,
Yeah,
yep.
that was the last.
So then after Falaise Gap, we captured Paris. And now there we stayed in the Normandy Hotel. I told you about the Normandy luxury liner burning in New York Harbor. I landed on Normandy Beach and stayed in the Normandy Hotel and had the first shower since we got landed on D-Day. And that was August 26th, 27th, somewhere in there. That I can't say for sure. But
how long was that shower? Was that a nice long shower, or was that a quick cold one?
No, it was. They had hot water in that son of a gun. Yeah, and man, it washed off accumulation there. A couple months accumulation. But we got used to each other. We all smell the same.
Awful, right?
You really never noticed that it was you or somebody else that was smelling like that. So,
what was it like for y'all when it all just kind of, there was nothing, there was no more digging in your foxhole and everything was quiet? You had hot showers, hot chow, time to sleep, time to think.
It's like God came down and blessed you. I don't know how else to put it. It's so unbelievable. And the French people, man, you went along, they pat you on the back and want to shake your hands. I don't do that. I'm the worst French speaker in the world, but I learned how to say oui, and it meant a different thing in our language, you know. So
how long after that before you were able to get back home?
Oh, well, hey, I'm only halfway through there. Now we're headed for Luxembourg, the Battle of Luxembourg, and I got up one afternoon, 2 o'clock, and I thought there was nothing happening. Man, it was beautiful. I'm walking down these cobblestone streets, and I come to a crosswalk where the street to the left goes up a hill. And there's cobblestone all along that there. And I start walking across that street, and all of a sudden, there's a British Spitfire comes over that hill, and behind him was a German Messerschmitt 109 shooting a cannon at him. And that Spitfire follows the contour of that hill down, and that Spitfire is behind him and shooting that cannon. Those cannon were hitting 3 feet in front of me. Those cannon shells. I tell you, I was down on that cobblestone trying to crawl in a crack there. It's amazing the defense you can come up with in a hurry. No qualms about getting down as close to the ground as you can get. And there was pieces of rock that was flying up out of there. But there again, luck is on my side. Not even a scratch. So then we went on to Belgium and stationed in Eupen. And I'm working nights again, or more. Yep. That was my duty all through the war. I worked nights. You can see why some of this stuff. There's no soldier went into battle like I did. You won't find another one that has had those weird experiences that I've had, but it's because it was different for me. So on December 15th, that night, Marlene Dietrich was going to perform for the troops. And Sergeant Jake Larson had to go to work. The night of December 15th, 7:30 at night, that's when I started working. At 2 o'clock in the morning, December 16th, a MP corporal drives up with his Jeep and screeches the wheels and puts on his brake and gets out of there, and he salutes me. I was a staff sergeant. Salutes me. You don't salute non-coms. And while he's saluting, he says, "Sergeant, I'm from post number 6. I was walking my post and I looked up and there were German parachutists coming down, 2 o'clock in the morning." I said, "What did you do?" He says, "I jumped in my Jeep and came right up here." I said, good for you." Immediately, I went and woke up Colonel Hill, Colonel John G. Hill, and told him, and while he's putting on his leggings and stuff, I'm talking to him, and he says, you wake up General Giroux, General Leonard T. Giroux, who was in command of 5th Corps. So we got those two together. They alerted the 1st Army, and they alerted the 1st and 29th Divisions who were under us and on the lines. Now, because of that alert, we saved a lot of lives, because 5:30 the next morning, that's when Germans started sending tanks through, and they came through, and they picked up a bunch of engineers and stuff. I think they were artillery guys that go out there and give them range on where the artillery shells. But I'm not an artillery man. I'm an former infantry, so I can't tell you anyway. But we thought at the time that they had captured a couple hundred of them. And then when that Colonel Piper, in charge of that tank, I don't know if it was the division or what it was, but he gave the word that when these tanks drove by these guys in the ditch, it was snowing, with their hands above their heads, they'd come by and fire their 30 caliber machine gun at those guys in the ditch. And we thought that there was a couple hundred guys that were killed there. And when they finally got them out of the snowbanks, it was like they were frozen in time, and their arms were outstretched and legs outstretched. It was like handling spiders. What a sickening thing. I think it was that they shot and killed 89. I may be wrong, one or two out of that. But there was 4 of those guys got up and tried to run, and they got into a abandoned house, and the Germans just set it afire and shot them when they came out. I think there was one second lieutenant that made it out of there, but the last I heard, or at that time, was that he had lost his mind. God, that's the one thing about war. It can so vary where you're at and what's going on. So we were cut off up at Eupen from the rest of the First Army. So here's another thing. 5th Corps was placed in the British service under the 21st Army Group, under Field Marshal Montgomery. And we served up there during the Battle of the Bulge. And when the Third Army, when Patton's Third Army got up there and put the pressure on them from the south, we put the pressure on them with the British forces from the north, and we just squeezed them to death. So on the 31st, when it was going, that's when I was one of the lucky ones to get a 45-day furlough back to home in the United States, because I had the most points at that time. Points were the amount of time you spent in the service, and then the big thing was the amount of time you spent overseas. Well, I spent my from I was in early 1941, put in the federal service, and overseas for about 15 days, short of 3 years. So now the rest of this story is going to be me going to Le Havre, France, waiting for a ship to come in, getting eaten up by fleas, going to bed there in a former German submarine, Quonset, full of fleas, in here, over there for 6 months and no fleas, and then just ready to go home and get fleas. Disgusting. Now I want comments.
Did you have access to alcohol much while you were going
Yes.
out of
Yes.
towns and villages?
Yes. I think I lived on champagne.
French champagne?
Yes, where the hell? That's where we were. Yeah. But all the way through. It cost 30 cents a bottle. 30 cents.
Was a lot, yeah.
A bottle of champagne. That puts you to sleep in a hurry. You drink a bottle of that.
Did you carry any with you, or was it just
No,
found or purchased as necessary? Or did you find any, or did you buy it all?
I bought it all. I bought it by the case. Just put it in the truck when we moved. It moved along with us.
How long did it take you to go through a case?
I did about a bottle a day.
Did that help you cope?
Yeah, it put me to sleep.
So I'm sorry, where in this story did you meet your wife? I forget. Did you say, yeah, have you met your wife?
There, back in when we first came over in 1942, I got acquainted with a medical major. Major Joseph Ridgway was his name. I had a 35 millimeter Argus C2 camera. And I don't remember how I got acquainted with Major Ridgway, but he had an 8 millimeter movie camera. I was a wind up. You wind them up and spring loaded. And he said, if you go on furlough any place, pick up my movie camera and take with you. This is weird. This is weird. But anyway, I got a furlough. I'm in North Ireland, Lurgan, North Ireland. I got a furlough to go to Edinburgh, Scotland. Always heard about Edinburgh and all that up there. So I wanted to get up there. So went to Edinburgh, Scotland, and I picked up his movie camera. And it was real interesting, and got this beautiful country, but it's always cold up there. People over there lived in sweaters. It's a different lifestyle. Everybody had sweaters. I'm not a sweater man. I don't even own a sweater. But that's what everybody had. So anyway, I got back from that, gave him back his camera, and about a month went by, and I was out with my Argus C2 on a Sunday, walking around. I'd just taken some pictures of a pair of swans. We don't have swans in Minnesota, so I thought, well, that'll be quite a thing to show that there. And here comes Major Ridgway in his Jeep. Gets out of that Jeep. Hey, Jake, I got a bone to pick with you. At that time, I was just a sergeant, a three-stripe sergeant. And I figured, what in the world could I have done that he would be picking something up on me? So I said, well, say your piece. So he says, when you had my movie camera, who are those girls you took pictures of? Wow, man, I had, that was a month ago. So, he says, that's when you were in Edinburgh, Scotland. Oh, God, yeah. They had some kind of a convention there. And I says, I never saw so many beautiful looking young ladies. So I just thought, well, I'll give a little bit of time on the camera with that. He says, well, I sent that roll of film back to my wife to get developed, and she wants to know who those girls are. Oh, it says, Major, you can't do that. All you had to do is have that developed here, and you could have had that clipped out of there if you didn't want her to see her. Just tell her it's just a convention. He says, well, anyway, he says, my wife, she's a tough bird, see. So I said, well, just don't do that anymore. So Major Ridgway's Jeep was sitting right there. So I sat in his Jeep behind the steering wheel and gave him my camera. And he took a picture of me sitting in his Jeep. I did not sit in any Jeep any other time in all my service. It's the only one I sat in. And so when I developed that one, my golly, I did my own stuff. That was a beautiful picture. So I sent that picture of me in the Jeep and the pictures on the swans to my mother. And my dad saw them, and he took them into the photo news in Owatonna and put them in the paper. And after I'm married, after I've come home, get married, and go to Dunwoody for 2 years, and out of Dunwoody, a trade school, and I have a service station. At noon, I go home and go in and wash my hands so that they're clean while we eat. There's my wife's wallet. She's changing wallet, and she has all the stuff from the inside. And there's that picture of me sitting in the Jeep from a newspaper. I said, how in the world did you get a hold of that? Oh, she says, when I was going to high school in the 10th grade, I was a sophomore. That picture came out in the photo news. And she says, I cut it out of there and I put it in my wallet. My girlfriend says, who is that guy? She says, that's the guy I'm going to marry. If you think that's the God's truth. No comments?
You've been surrounded by some very powerful women in your life. Your grandmother watching over you, keeping you safe through all the atrocity that was. your service. I listen to you tell those stories. I feel like you have a blessing of disassociativeness. You literally can disassociate. That's why you're able to go to sleep at night and separate yourself from what you're doing in the day, and even what you saw when you went out those days. I couldn't imagine. Like you said, started feeling sorry for the German soldiers because
Oh,
we're all just human, and doing what we're told, and what at what cost are we fighting for? And sometimes I imagine you have to say, what are we fighting for? And again, you have to remind yourself why you're there. And anyways, yeah, I find now that your wife picked you out before you knew it, and you didn't find out till a couple of years later. Again, a very powerful woman. So she knew what she wanted, and she went after it and got it.
I'm alive today thanks to my wife. I lost her 30 years ago. 30 years ago. And her picture sits over here. I can just look up and see her smiling. I would not be here if you got a couple minutes here. I'd like to tell you a couple of the things I've gone through since she passed on. She got us into this house where I live with my two sons and their families. Their families grew up with me. I've got a small place here to the side of the house. We have over 4,000 square feet of house. We got 3 full kitchens, 5 bathrooms, 9 bedrooms, and I'm just a little 1 bedroom and one toilet and kitchen here. And I like to cook because I got into cooking going to high school. So here after my wife passed away 29 years ago, I had been to Minnesota for 7 weeks. I traveled all over, and then I even went up to Eau Claire, Wisconsin. That was the last 5th Corps veterans meeting, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. There was about 30 of us there, 30 years or 29 years ago. And I got to thinking, I'm there with those guys. They're in wheelchairs and they can't hardly move. And my God, is that what I'm turning into? And but drove back to Wells, Minnesota, and I got the next day. I went home on the plane by myself, and when I got here, a pile of mail about 8 o'clock at night. I'm sitting there going through that mail, and Kurt, my oldest son, comes down from upstairs and looks in my refrigerator. I've been gone for 7 weeks. Nothing there. So he shuts that up and starts to go back upstairs again. And I said, Kurt, wait a minute. He says, have you got a problem? Think of this. I'm gone all that time. No problem, no aches, no pain. I said, Kurt, I'm getting dizzy. He says, I'll be right down. He gets his keys and takes me down to Kaiser in Walnut Creek, about 15 miles away. And I'm starting to feel good. Next thing I knew, my family was all down there. At 10:30, my daughter said, They want to keep you overnight, Dad. Think of this now, what I'm telling you. They hooked me up to something, I don't know what, and I went to sleep. I woke up the next day in a hospital 25 miles away in Concord, Mount Diablo Hospital, with 6 stents in me. And the doctor there said, Mr. Larson, we gave you 6 stents to feed your heart. He says, you need 5 more. And Kaiser is going to take you over to San Francisco and do that. So they took me over there and put 5. I've got 11 stents in me. 11. People don't believe me. Doctors don't believe me. But I said, it's on record. You can check that. So
I believe you.
17 years ago,
Take your time. Take a breath.
When you fell, or when you had?
I got that mixed up.
It's okay.
That was not the stents at that time. That was the stroke.
Yeah.
The stents were 17 years ago.
You jumbled up.
It's
Yeah.
okay. Can you tell us what was your most memorable experience during your time in Europe?
The most memorable was probably when I got transferred to G3 of 5th Corps. My God, you got to think, I'm an infantryman. I would have gone down to North Africa. Ray J. Erickson did not make it through there, and he was the captain of the thing. He didn't make it through. And a company clerk there is usually right close to your commanding officer. So I think that being transferred to G3 of 5th Corps, that changed my life. But I think somebody was helping me all along there to even get that change. Who helped me to get to be a company clerk for a headquarters company from an infantry company? They're all big. I think that's why I can remember so many of them. It's to me, a little country boy, a little farm boy from Hope, Minnesota, having these kind of recollections. It's life is unbelievable for me.
What was life like for you right after you came back from war? How did you know, i.e., that you were coming home, that you survived the war? And then what was your experience like?
I'll tell you, it took me 51 days to come from the Battle of the Bulge to get to Fort Snelling to be on my 45-day leave. 51 days it took. they put me on a Liberty ship right at Le Havre after that came in. And I volunteered for mess sergeant, making coffee and ice cream there. And but that ship did not leave for the United States. They loaded it with wounded from the Battle of the Bulge. And then we hauled them to Portsmouth and then made another trip back and loaded up again. I think we did 3 of those trips, but 2 for sure. But by the time then we stopped a train stop in Chicago, and one of the corporals in G3 and Andrew Marsh gave me said, when you stop in Chicago, call this number. So I called that number, and that was Andy's folks, and they came down and gave me a quart of whiskey. Wow. I don't remember going from Chicago to Minneapolis or St. Paul or to Fort Snelling. I think somebody had to help me in there. And
whiskey, huh?
Yeah, man, when you don't have any for a long time, it doesn't take much to boil you over. So anyway, I was sitting by this post in the morning, and I was sitting there kind of numb, and somebody looked down at me and said, "Jake, is that you?" My God, it was my cousin Ole. Take of this. We left Minnesota on the 15th or the 10th of February for Camp Claiborne, Louisiana. We went together to New York, came over to North Ireland. And when they went down to North Africa, I went to Bristol in England. Then he went to the war. He got wounded in Italy. And he got leave to come back for 45 days for him from Italy. How is it possible that we would meet at Fort Snelling the same time? How is that possible?
Apparently it was.
You see, when I start telling things like this here, people think I'm making all this up.
It's a small world like that sometimes.
It is crazy. I say it's really crazy.
I think it's divine intervention. I think that you were supposed to have an amazing path, and you did, and you're able to. So many people would have already lost those amazing type of experiences and be able to recall so much. You're blessed in so many ways all the way through this story. You're blessed. We're blessed that you're here telling it to us.
You know, I talk on TikTok.
That's how we found this.
I tell stories to the kids. God, I'm so blessed. These people write to me. I've had teachers write to me. Teachers that teach history and say, thank you. That's all I need. I get tears right now just talking about it. I'm helping those people understand that war is hell. And I'm not a hero. They treat me like a hero. I'm not a hero. The heroes are all buried over there. When I went back for the 75th anniversary of D-Day, I was the only one alive in my outfits. I didn't go back for me. I went back for those guys buried over there. Oh, over 9,000 right there on Omaha Cemetery. Well, they made a way for me to get through. Can you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not a hero. I'm here for a purpose, to educate people. And I hope I'm doing something for everyone by telling these stories.
Oh, you are, very much so. We would like to hear more. What was it like for you to go back on that anniversary?
Oh, it was so unbelievable. I was like a magnet. People just flocked around me. They wanted to touch me, to shake my hand. Most of them couldn't speak English, but their actions. I've got people. I just opened up two letters last night. One from a couple in France, one from a family in Belgium, thanking me for my service, for meeting over in France. God, when I affect people like that, I know I'm getting some reaction. And the people of the United States, that story about me on D-Day with that sleeping in that litter and putting the rifle on there. That's buddy of mine, Madison Rich, I told you what there. He came home from the service. He came home from the service, got married, and we both worked. So we didn't have time to get together. He's in New Jersey, and I'm in California. But we'd call each other every once in a while. He didn't make it till 70 years old. He had a series of mini strokes, and he would record. Now, this is told to me later, see, but he records some of the things, and he told that story to his children, 2 boys and 2 girls. He told that story about laying his rifle on my litter and having it broken too. Now, on D-Day, when I was over there, that was worldwide news. I had 5 reporters interview me. And when they got done, another young lady came up with her cameraman, and she says, "Mr. Larson, I'm from Moscow, Russia. I would like to interview you." How many people do you think are ever been interviewed by Moscow? Think of that. So now, ironically, a young man in New York was watching that program. So he called his brother over in New Jersey. He says, "Are you watching this thing on the 75th anniversary of D-Day?" And the guy said, "Yeah, I am." He says, "I wonder if that Jake Larson that they're talking about, it's the same one that Dad talked about." He got, I don't know how he got my son's phone number. My baby, he's born in 59. My baby was born in 1959. So he got his phone number and called him. He says, I was talking to my brother, and we were wondering if that Jake Larson they're talking about there on D-Day is the same one that my dad was with. And my son says, "What was your dad's name?" He says, "Madison Rich." "That's the guy." "Yeah, that's my dad." The oldest boy, Larry, came out here to meet me. I've had phone conversations with the family 4 in a row, just like this here. You see, there is a God. There is a God. All this stuff shouldn't happen, but it is happening, and it's fantastic. It's utterly ridiculous, but it's so unbelievable. So I need some comments. I don't know what to say.
So, Jake, I got a question for you, and you touched on a lot of things that I've similarly experienced in my situations going through war, and in a sense that I got really lucky in my time frame. But I was curious, during your time, how did you handle the survivor's guilt of knowing all of these men lost in battle or outliving all of the members of your unit over time, and how have you been able to cope with that and get through that?
Do you know, I was a soldier before I was a man enough to be a soldier. And if you're a soldier, you're willing to die for your country. So every one of their deaths filled a spot, spilled a thought. And if it weren't for them, I would have filled that spot. If you start looking at life that way, so many people had to be killed. It's terrible to think that, but it is. Think of the World Trade Center when that was knocked down. Everything that was worse than war. How did those people live it afterwards? And they had no warning or anything. We had warnings. We were prepared for everything. So you mentally have to prepare for death. Does that help you any or not?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
I think that's something that we all come to terms with. There's served, each one of us, combat or no, we all have set upon our service. Of course, you kind of ran away early and joined. When you came back from service, were you out of the National Guard, or did you still have some enlistment?
No.
Or they just released you outright?
the National Guard was not National Guard anymore. We were Army. We were just considered Army.
Did you do 20 then? Did you do 20 at the end of it, or how long did you do?
Me, I came home on that 45-day leave, and when I came up to Fort Snelling after 45 days, that was the day after President Trump died. That was the April 13th. I came up there. His was the 12th. He died on no, not from Roosevelt. Roosevelt.
No.
Roosevelt died on
Thinking, but no.
Roosevelt died on the 12th. See, I'm getting a little excited here, but I came. My 45 days were up on the April 13th. And here's my luck again. The captain called me in, and I thought, oh my God, they're going to send me to Japan. And I came in, he says, I saluted him. He says, relax, Sergeant. He says, relax. He said, 10 minutes ago, I got a call from Washington, the Pentagon. He said, I was told I could send you back to your unit in Germany, or I could give you a discharge. If I wouldn't have had 51 days getting home, hauling wounded to Portsmouth and back, and I had a slow ship 7 miles an hour, that son of a gun, across the Atlantic. If all those circumstances hadn't been, and if I had spent just one day extra away, I would have gone back to Germany. You understand? My life is a miracle.
How did you feel, such as my father was on a ship on his way to Japan when the bombs were dropped? The nuclear bombs were dropped.
Wow.
Where were you, and do you remember that day?
Man, that was in August. War was out of my mind. I can't say it any plainer. I lived war. I lived war. Man, and I was a staff sergeant over at that time. Combat pay, I was making $127 a month. No comments on that, huh?
Well, that was how things were at the time.
Yeah, then I went to Dunwoody Trade School. I learned electricity. I learned air conditioning, refrigeration, motor rewinding. I could fix anything, except I'm not a carpenter. I'm the worst guy with a saw, but I can use a hammer.
When did you make your way out to California?
See, that's another unbelievable story. And if you want to hear it, I'll tell you.
Absolutely.
All right. I got a job as a lineman. I was a lineman. I got a journeyman lineman license in Austin, Minnesota, at the municipal light plant. And I worked all the current transformers. I worked 2,400 volts hot, changing those things. But I was schooled in electrical. So there was nothing, the thing with, you're dealing with high voltage, you do it with care. So we had current transformers to change in 10,800 volt stuff, but those were in cubicles and 1 inch steel cubicles. And when you worked on those, you shut them off and then put a shunt across there. So that if it got accidentally turned on, you wouldn't get burned up. It would just blow a fuse. Well, I got a offer for a job at a TV place. I could fix radio and TV too from Dunwoody. So when TV started to come out, I went up to this TV place to see about buying one. And a lady started talking to me, and I said, are these printed circuits or are they hand wired? She says, if you're going to talk like that, you go down and see my husband. He's down, the shop is in the basement. So I went down there and asked him about that. He said, where'd you know about that? I says, I went to Dunwoody, says, for 2 years. Oh, he says, do you know anything about record players? I said, hey, record players are mechanical. There's nothing about record players. They're not electrical, just the motor that runs them. He says, well, I've got one in here. And that were, at that time, it was 78 RPM. That was the standard. He says, I've got one I've had here for over 2 months. And Stan, the weatherman from the TV place, said that he knows all about them and he can't get that thing fixed. I said, where is this record player? He says, it's on the record player stand right there. So I got a stack of records and put on the spindle and put it over and hit the redo button, and man, that arm landed on the floor. So I got out my little screwdriver and raised that arm up and did what I thought was about the right amount of turns for and started it again, and it landed right on the record. He said, Jesus Christ, I can't believe you. I can't believe this at all. He says, you make one adjustment and it's perfect. And Stan the weatherman has been doing this. He says, are you looking for a part-time job? I says, oh, definitely I am. I got to be a call man, TV calls, TV. Well, a couple of years after that, he says, man, you're going to have to quit the light plant and come to work for me. I'll pay you $125 a week. God, what a blessing that was. I just bought a house. It was pressing times at that time. So I went to work for him. In 1957, he gave me a 2-week vacation. And my sister's mother died 2 weeks before our oldest son was born. And we raised her younger sister, who was 11 years old at that time. And we sent her to high school. And then we sent her to Houston, Texas for nurses training. Well, my kids had got used to their Aunt Dolly, and they said, if you're going to California, can we go by Houston and see Auntie Dolly? Oh, wow. Well, we ended up driving by Houston on the way to California, straight south, 1,000 miles. And then we made it to California, and got back 6,000 miles we put on. I saw my two brothers out in California, and man, I couldn't get over the fact that you don't get rain in the summertime. So got back to Minnesota after 2 weeks, and the boss of the TV shop came out to me, and the first thing he said, "Jake, I'm going to kill myself." He caught his wife with another guy, and I said, "Hey," I says, "Yeah, I that kind of talk, I just don't care for that." I says, what is something like this here going to do to your two children? He had about a 12-year-old boy and a 10-year-old daughter. I said, what's going to happen to their life? You start talking like this. And well, I'm getting a migraine. Hey, I'm sitting here. I don't get headaches. I get the opposite kind, but I cure those myself by just walking away from those people. You following me? No,
Tracking.
no.
Absolutely.
All right. So he says, I want you to run the place for 2 weeks while I sort this out. Can you do that? He says, because my migraine is killing me. I says, I'll do that. So I worked calls all day, and at night we had 5 different places that were two-way radios, and they had to be operating anytime, especially the sheriff and the police and the fire department. So when they went out at midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning, I had to carry everything up to the top of the courthouse and check all the tubes and get it back to working again. And at the end of 2 weeks, I had to take money to the bank and take it out and put it in the till. And so at the end of 2 weeks, they got back together, and his wife came working at the place. And so he came to work, and I had about 5 calls that I'd held back on because they were not in a hurry. So I did those, and at 5:15 at night, man, we're supposed to finish at 5, and I finished giving Melba the money for all the calls, and I said, well, that's it for today. I'm beat. I said, I'm going home. Oh, I heard a little voice come back at me. Oh, Jake, you owe the till $5. I turned around. I said, what did you say? She said, there's $5 missing from the till. And so long as you were the only one taking care of that, you owe the till $5. I said, $5? If I was going to take something, and try to get by with it, I wouldn't have stopped at $5. I says, I'm not paying that SOB. And I turned around and headed for home again. And I heard this little voice say, I'll just take it out of your paycheck. I out the door. And my wife met me at home, and she says, what is your problem? So I told her the story of $5. And I thought I could get some help from her to settle that thing. No. She says, what are you going to do about it? I said, Lola, I'm so peed off. I feel like putting the house up for sale and moving to California. Are you serious? I said, you're darn right I'm serious. She says, let's do it. That's how come I moved to California. Then a month and a half after I was out here, a call came from Minnesota. Melba said the cash register went on the blink and she had a guy come in to fix it. And there was a $5 bill in the gears. If you think somebody isn't messing with my life, you think of that one.
Been here since.
Man,
And you
it's
stayed there.
oh, your stories are great.
Look, people couldn't make up something like this. You couldn't make it up if you tried.
Well, that's life sometimes. And that's the beautiful thing. Look, we have taken 2.5 hours out of your day today.
No, you didn't. You added 2.5 hours to my life today. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I needed this. I needed this. There's a lot of things I needed to get said. And I got a chance to say it. But God bless all the veterans that are, I don't have any preference for service. One service is the same as we're all for the same thing. We love our flag. We love our country. And if any of you have been overseas, man, you're so happy to get home. The United States of America, the greatest country in the world. I'm blessed to be a part of it, to have been born here. Think of the people that are born other places. They don't realize what we have here compared to them. I don't know how to say it anymore. I love the flag. I love the United States of America. I cannot say it any plainer than that. And thank you all.
Jake, you are welcome here anytime if you'd like to come back, or if you feel that there's something that you didn't say. Again, it's an open door policy. And if you want to join us again, please let us know. Needless to say, I am absolutely humbled to have you here. It has been an absolutely spectacular learning experience, and we appreciate you sharing your experiences with us. So, Robert, what would you like to say?
Yeah, Jake, I just wanted to offer you, the opportunity. Were there any questions you had for us, the younger generation of veterans, that you would like to know?
I kind of do that as I go along. The main thing right here is I got all this off of my mind. I want you guys to realize 98 years old. I'm not going to live forever. But I got it said. You understand what I'm saying? I got it said. I love the veterans. Everyone, everybody who's a veteran. What a wonderful thing. People who don't join the service are missing something. It's a wonderful thing, the camaraderie, the idea you're sticking up for that flag. Can you take this thing and put it right up to that flag?
Yeah, I can. There you go. Let's see.
That's a wooden flag.
Let me see.
Did Jose Belen make that for you? Where'd you get that flag?
It came from a guy that came up to the bagel shop. He's a carpenter, and he had three little daughters. And I give those kids a quarter for the gumball machine. And they love Papa Jake. They come in there and hug me and kiss me. And he got to know me. And secretly, he made that from scratch for me. My God, man, that's the pride of my life.
We have on Friday, there's a group of veterans that get together for what they call happy hour every Friday through the COVID. And his name is Jose Belen, and he served in Afghanistan, or needless to say, wanted to give veterans a place to just get together once a week for a check-in and have somebody to talk to so they weren't alone in this COVID. But Jose makes flags for families of veterans who have passed away. And just by word of mouth, that, and he sometimes in special cases, he drives these flags all over. That's why when I saw it, I thought, well, where'd you get that? I wonder if you already know our guy, Jose. So maybe you can come for a happy hour on Friday. There's usually between 15 and 25 veterans, depending on which day of the week it is, that get together. You think this screen looks crazy. There's not even room for a big face because there's, 5 rows of veterans right there talking, men and women, and maybe you can join up for that one time.
Well, I belong to a veterans group here.
You guys Zoom meetings? Do you guys do Zoom meetings?
Every third Thursday is our meeting at Denny's.
Normally.
But we haven't had enough since this COVID. So, and those guys, there's a lot of Vietnam veterans, and the way the Vietnam veterans were treated when they got out of the service, it's an outrage, There's people that went over there, put their life on the line in defense of what the United States want them to do. And they put their life on the line and got treated like dirt. It's terrible. They didn't treat us any different, but we came out of the service and nobody even talked about the service. The first time I was ever told, thank you for your service, was 70 years after D-Day. The French gave me the Legion of Honor. People started saying, thank you for your service.
Jake, can I ask you a tough question?
You ask me anything.
Our veterans today, well, they face a different kind of war than they did in World War I or World War II. And our veterans today, the numbers that the VA has said is that 22 veterans, that's honorably discharged veterans, are committing suicide, because every day that's 22 service members are dying on US soil every day from suicide. And those veterans range from the Vietnam to the current ongoing situation we have. Do you see a way that we can find a solution to that? Are you aware of that statistic?
I'm not aware of that, but there again, I'm kind of unique. I never got veterans assistance. I came out with the shakes. And I had the shakes. I couldn't pick up a cup of coffee with my right hand for 70 years. And then I've stumbled over a stop block going to my van after I was visiting one of the neighbors that had Parkinson's. I fell on my head, on my temple, my left temple. I had 29 stitches taken through my eyebrow and the left temple, and 20 and 30 in my hand. Now, this comes out kind of funny there, but I was at Kaiser, and he sewed me all up, and then he says, so long as that knocked you out, he says, I'd like to have you go down and have an MRI in the basement. They always have those things down in the basement. So I went down to the basement, and there was a huge guy there in charge of that. And he says, sir, he says, I have to ask you a few questions before I put you in there. I said, go right ahead. So he asked me a question, and I smarted off to him. I said, I should, as many times as I've been screwed in life. What do you think he asked me?
Did you have any metal in your body?
No, he says, are you pregnant?
Oh, Lord.
He was doing his thing by rote. It didn't mean anything to him. He had a certain amount of questions he had to ask. There are people like that. You understand what I'm saying? I was at the top of the list there to ask, are you pregnant? He's asking the person. I said, I should be, as many times I've been screwed in life. He said, get in there.
Jake, you have an amazing sense of humor.
And listen, that fall on the side of my head, I could be a doctor operating on somebody's brain. Look, I swear, I'm as steady as a rock. How is that possible?
Well, you're a living testament, and needless to say, you've been an absolute blessing to have today. Again, I want to thank you for joining us. And again, anytime you're welcome back, just let us know. Again, we've gone quite a few hours now, and you've told us some and shared amazing journey in the journey of your life. And needless to say, you have humbled and honored us all. And we just want to wish you nothing but the best. And I want to thank your family for allowing us this time with you today. Is there any last words you'd like to share with us before we go on?
It's an honor for me to even have you think about having me. And being the last man you don't know what an honor this is for me. So that I honor all those who have given their life already, all the veterans. God bless them. God bless them all.
Thank you. Bless you, and many blessings to your family. We look to talk to you soon, and we wish you nothing but the best. And thank you for regaling us with all of your wonderful life. And we hope that it continues to be a long and prosperous one.
Awesome.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I will end our video for today. We will be putting this up on YouTube, so it is there as well as it's here on Facebook. So please go to our V.A.C. YouTube channel, as well as go to our social media, give us a like, as well as, most importantly, share this wonderful video and experience. It was one of a kind, and we hope to have Jake back, needless to say. But thank you all once again for an absolutely memorable experience, and y'all have a great rest of your day.